Our first fighter for the evening comes all the way from the Netherlands. He has 2 master's degrees, weighing in at 73 kilograms and standing at 183 high. Put your hands together and make some noise in the white corner for Daan Sax van der Weijden! And fighting him in the black corner this evening, our next fighter has a cat and a brother.
Yeah!
From Cologne, Germany, he is part of Chessboxing Cologne, who put on their first chessboxing event last year. Let's make some noise for Martin Loy! Weighing in at 73 kilograms and standing at 180 tall. Let's make some noise for our first fighters, Daan Sax and Martin Loy!
Matt, Fiona, what are we going to see here tonight?
We're going to see some chess, we're going to see some boxing, and we're going to have a bloody good time! Yeah, and we also see the Queen's Gambit, made famous by the TV series starring Anya Taylor-Joy.
London is the Queen's Gambit was avoided. Interesting approach from Dan.
Fiona, what is the significance of the knight being on c3 in this reverse tariff?
It stops the c-pawn from advancing. And we see Martin does just that. Martin, the slightly higher rated player in this bout. And Chris, what do you make of the early stages here?
Dan is taking his time over the opening moves, I have to say. They only have 8 minutes each to use over the course of the 2 rounds. He plays bishop f4, which is a classical move here. Although, is there going to be an exchange of the d-pawn in the center?
So it looks as if we have some sort of Jabava London. I thought White might play a move like e4, which I suppose is probably possible and topical here. Taking on c5 doesn't look quite so sensible. Now e4, is e4 normal here, Fiona?
Yeah, I guess e4 is interesting to fight back in the center. d4 might be a little bit tender. It looks like the players are waiting each other out a little bit. A slow start to the game. They are taking a lot of time. But we see Canwell. No, she's just watching. Nothing's happening.
Nothing is happening, but a pawn has just been taken, ladies and gentlemen. We have just swapped off on d4. Things are really kicking off now.
Oh, after a
And
slow
White
start.
is back in the tank.
He was thinking how to recapture, takes with the pawn, makes a lot of sense. We're still in the early stages. We see some developing moves. Who's going to be first to strike here? What do we think?
I mean, something like knight b5 feels, you know, a little bit obvious, but is it tricky? Does Black just play knight a6 and say, well, that knight's slightly sillily placed there? Or are the knight and bishop? And he's done it! And he's done it! Instantly playing knight a6. So the knight was going to swoop into c7, potentially forking Black's king and rook, winning the rook. Black, rather unhappily, has stopped that immediately. And once again, we're in the tank. White is ticking away here.
Yeah,
He's already lost 2 minutes on the clock.
So yeah, let's look at the clocks again. So as I was saying, there's only 8 minutes for them to use over the course of all of their chess rounds. And Dan White is already a minute and a half, over a minute and a half behind. And we are barely out of the opening here.
I think White needs to pick up the speed here. Down 2 minutes out of the opening is too much. It's not sustainable. And I like what he's done, but he needs to pick up the pace. Wow, and Black mirrors White's strategy with the knight forward.
And
I think he wants to exchange the bishop on d3 here. That's why the knight's gone there. Will White Dan decide to allow that exchange or drop the bishop back, Matt?
Well, bishop back to e2, followed by something like c3. Knight's probably coming back to a3, and then c2, maybe maneuvering into e3 or something at some point. And then we've got a fairly normal London system, which will be typical and known to many, many people in this room. In some respects, quite boring. In others, though, how could anything be more exciting?
You're right, Matt. This is a very slow maneuvering game. White did decide to drop the bishop back, not wanting to give up what's called the bishop pair, and they follow your path with c3. Chris, who would you rather want to be here?
I mean, it's very, very even. The only real asymmetry is in the pawn positions. White has more pawns on the queen side, black has more pawns on the king side. That might determine how this evolves a little bit later down the line, but frankly, it looks quite even at the moment.
Given how dull the position is, ladies and gentlemen, can we get a chance of chess? Chess! 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 Inject some fire into the board on this terrible, terrible game as the bell is rung and we move into the boxing.
Both, as we saw in the intros, have been training very, very hard. Dan, the Dutchman, has given up partying for the last 2 years in training for this. His opponent, Martin, the marathon runner, already done 2, going to be doing a 3rd in the near future. On the basis of the chess, we'll be seeing some marathon chess to come after this.
Are we? Yeah, so a strong start, Chris. You're the expert here, but I think what's interesting, Martin has won a fight. For Dan, it's his first one. What are your first impressions?
I mean, my first impressions is completely different from what we saw in the chess. This is toe-to-toe, telephone box action. There's no feeling each other out. There's no trying to establish the jab. They're both straight at it. A brief pause now. A brief pause as they're trying to size each other up after those opening blows.
But it's interesting, you're right, it wasn't a stylistic choice. They're not inherently boring competitors. This has been a phenomenally aggressive start, albeit things have calmed down slightly now and Ronaldo's getting involved.
Referee Ronaldo having a word with the cornerman. I think he might not be happy with something here. He's not happy with the laces. Not happy with Dan's laces. Is he playing for time already here? Maybe he's having a think about the chess in the corner. And we're off again. We are off again.
I guess they can't hear.
Straight back at it there. So about it, Martin landing a couple of hefty blows.
And Chris, let me ask you, as someone who doesn't know much about boxing, how important is it to get that first punch in, to be the first to draw blood?
If you can land the first heavy punch, that's definitely a psychological blow, equivalent to swiping your opponent's piece and making him think a little bit. But I would say it's fairly even at the moment. Instructions being ordered from both corners as we enter another circling phase.
Oh, goodness me, right in the midriff.
Martin Noy in black, I have to say, the best hair in chess boxing. A phenomenal barnet there.
And rightly applauded by the crowd. Good effort, son, good effort.
Oh! Is that going to be ruled a slip, or is this going to be an 8 count? I think it's being ruled a slip. The count is not being administered. Ronaldo orders them to start again. That was just a slip.
Let's think a little bit about the clock. So Fiona, we were discussing this earlier. Dan is 3 minutes down on the clock, and actually that equates to a whole chess round. It is going to get to a point potentially where he might even need to get a knockout, a technical knockout, a massive advantage in the next round of boxing, or do something really fiery in the chess, which doesn't feel likely.
I mean, I'm even wondering if the clocks are correct, because he spent so much time. I don't feel we were watching 8 minutes of chess, so there might be an issue.
Hang on. Martin launching a vicious assault towards the end of this round. Dan absorbs it well and fires back, though.
Yeah, really lovely pugilistic stuff from the two.
It's a good high-octane first round. Both fighters up on their feet. High energy, very little clinching. Just like a few pauses like this one.
And we're back to the chess.
That being said, White has one obvious move, after which...
Okay, and they are off again. Matt, you were just mentioning an obvious
He's
move.
dropped a piece.
What?
He's dropped a piece immediately. Oh.
Sorry, I mean, I got so excited about C takes D4, but something actually
did some brain
something
damage.
legitimately significant happened, but White has just lost a knight for absolutely nothing.
So what happened there? Dan's mind was scrambled after the boxing round, and he forgot that his knight on B5 was under attack from the black pawn, and he's lost it.
I mean,
He's lost a knight.
One of the main sayings in chess boxing is that being punched in the face isn't good for your chess, and this was one of those classic examples. White is just a piece down now. His bishop on e5 looks vaguely menacing, but doesn't seem to be doing anything. What would you do if you're white here, Fiona?
If I were white, I would try to survive and then try and get a knockout in the boxing. Not that I would know how to do that, but I think the chess is looking pretty hopeless at this point. Down a piece, down 3 minutes, 4 minutes almost on the clock. So get to the boxing, try and survive this one.
Some might say that's a defeatist attitude, but Fiona is a WIM, so she probably is just right, and white is probably just in a world of trouble. I mean, if this were a blitz match or a bullet, I mean, obviously white is massively down on the clock, so the analogy is pretty poor for a world of reasons. There's no h4, h5 plan, there's no rook lift. You can play b3 here. I suppose that's a thing, isn't it, Chris?
I mean, just keep the pieces on the board is what I do. If you can make a mistake, your opponent can make one, especially the deeper we get into the boxing and the deeper into the tank people go there, and it affects your performance. So just keep the pieces on, wait for your chance to come, and maybe you can even things up. Fiona, what's happening here?
Well, I think black is playing very well, keeping control of the situation. Maybe one idea for white is to look down at the pawn on the far right side in front of the king. The bishop from c2 is looking in that direction, and we need to get the queen into action here.
I mean, something like bishop takes h4 and, I don't know, queen a5 or something, queen b6. Hope that the pieces who are vaguely tied into each other start to fall apart somehow. Maybe facilitated by another punch in the face. I don't know. It seems pretty brutal, though. I think white is just in a lot of trouble here, and you're playing for time and you're playing for tricks.
Martin Noy, I briefly spoke to him before the fight. He was feeling confident. He won his first ever fight last summer in Norfolk. I asked him, are you nervous? He wasn't nervous, and right now he is dominating on the chessboard. Chris, who do you think is dominating in the boxing ring?
It was fairly even. There was the slip for Dan in the first round, but that was ruled as a slip. But it was an all-action round of boxing, and I think Dan is going to want to survive on the chess, take it as deep as he can into the boxing, and we should see him launch a quite vicious assault as he moves into that.
Queen e3 is a massive move.
Check,
so Queen e3,
check.
you have to check, everyone!
Check
Show
on
some
the
noise for the
board!
check! So king h1, queen f2, something like that. I mean, this is just horrible. This is so horrible. Queen f2, then the bishop on c2 is in a bit of trouble. Maybe the bishop comes to b3. Well, no, you're in check.
That was an
You're
illegal
in check.
move.
Martin Noy with
Illegal move!
Oh dear, Canwell's getting involved. Potentially, no, but that's fine. I mean, Martin Noy played with the nerveless charisma of a man with a cat and a brother.
Not to mention, he has not partied for 2 years straight in preparation for this.
People write whole books about that, Chris Levy, how that improves your brain function. There was a Bradley Cooper film about a man whose brain went up to 90% capacity when he didn't party for 2 years.
That is the dedication you need to succeed at
By
this.
the
Another
way,
knight
there's
comes into
a
c4.
big
The bishop is
danger
now on
here.
pre. The bishop is now on pre.
Also, knight e3
knight
is
e3, knight
very
e3.
dangerous.
No, and that's the bell.
But
and
he
the bishop has dropped off the board.
But he survived.
2 pieces down, but he makes it to the boxing round.
So now, Chris, now or never for Dan van der Weijden. What are you doing here if you're him?
You're just launching an assault from the off. You've got to put everything into this because next chess round, it's going to be over. But Dan, count him out yet. Dan in white really needs to launch an assault here from the off. Martin getting a little bit of a warning there for pulling Dan's head down. That'll eat into a few more seconds, which he won't be that upset about.
To be fair, though, Martin still seems up for the fight. He's not cowering in a corner. He knows that the chess is as good as won.
I think he wants to put on a show here. He's come on all the way from Germany. He's establishing himself in the chess boxing scene.
The youngest fighter of the night by quite a margin at only 19 years of age.
Lands a big right as well. I think
He doesn't just want to take the chess, he wants to take it all.
he wants to dominate. Ruthless.
But there is something about being the clear winner and having competed in both disciplines. So often you end up in a scenario where the winner in the chess was so clearly behind in the boxing, and I don't think that has been the case today.
I think he wants to leave no doubt as to who the man was here.
No crumb of comfort from the man from the Netherlands, potentially.
And Chris, let me ask you, the fact that Martin is 8 years younger than his opponent, is that a big factor in boxing?
I mean, you could argue it both ways. You could argue it gives you greater fitness. Oh, a low blow there, I think. Dan's going to be given a moment to recover in the corner, as the crown jewels may have been somewhat rearranged there. But he's back. To answer your question, yes, youth helps, but equally, you could argue a few more years of experience might help you deal with being under the lights. The magnitude of an occasion like this, which could, you know, speaking from personal experience, can be quite intimidating.
I mean,
but Dan is fighting back here. What's happening?
He's doing what he needs to, but he's not able to free his arms to really wing the power punches that he needs to. Oh, a nice little check right hook. And he follows it up by bullying Martin into the corner.
This is it. This is the last opportunity,
This is the moment. This is your moment, Dan.
I think if Martin survives this round, it is over. The chess game, there is no saving it. We can see a minute on the clock.
Dan has equipped himself really well here. It's been nice to see both competitors like properly going at it. And I suppose that was the thing with chess. You blunder a piece against a really strong opponent. And that is kind of it, unless they have a moment of brain fog.
Another good left hook landed there. And as Martin holds, Dan lands a few cheeky punches to the back of the head, just to rough him up a little bit.
He's got that hair to protect him.
I was about to say, let's just take a moment to admire again. Oh, I was just saying, admire that Barnet as the bell goes.
And is that bell a well-timed bell for Martin?
Absolutely. I think Dan landed a sneaky check right hook on him there on the break.
The boxing, whilst a very respectable showing from Dan, doesn't look blunder two pieces and also lose 6.5 minutes on the clock. Good. It's relatively straightforward for White to slowly improve. For Black to slowly improve their position. I think the other thing, saying conscious of the competitors not having their headphones on yet, is that actually there aren't really any practical strategies for White. The rook is, despite the open file, doing absolutely nothing on that side of the board.
And I think that Martin here just needs to watch out for one thing, and that's not to get background mated.
Yeah.
We see the 3 pawns are still in front of the king, so if I were Black, I would play a sneaky h6, g6, just to make sure we know what happens after a round of boxing.
So queen takes b2, threatening to take the rook on a1, bringing the match to an inevitable conclusion. Though, ladies and gentlemen, it's important now to look at the clock, which is down to 48, and now, as I complete this sentence, 44 seconds. And once that goes down to 0, it is game over for the man from the Netherlands, and that looks incredibly probable. Fiona, what does White do here? Is there any Hail Mary whatsoever?
I don't see it. I mean, you play rook b1, you have to probably activate the rook, attack the bishop, hope that maybe Martin, after a tough round of boxing, blunders a piece back, and then another.
Oh! Speak of the devil!
Oh!
And so he appears. d4, threatening another queen. 17 seconds left. Time ticking inexorably away here.
We're watching the final moments of this fight. Martin
9 seconds.
Completely dominated.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Oh no!
Oh, he gives up his queen for good measure as
Queen
well.
85. No, he's getting another queen with 1 second left. The king is in check.
Time over. Time gone.
Congratulations to Martin Neu from Germany, who gets a 2-0 record with this win.
2-0, 100%, and he's not even 20. What a time.
He can't even rent a car yet, ladies and gentlemen,
Let's
but he
hear
has
it
won his
for
second mount.
What an amazing first fight of the evening. And the winner is Martin